Hi darling friends, it's Alora and welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be reviewing a book that I absolutely adored. That book is Normal People by Sally Rooney. Now, Normal People has received quite a lot of critical acclaim, and for good reason. I fell for it hard. This is an elegant, character-driven novel set in Ireland. This story explores the dynamic between two people and how individuals can have a profound impact on who you are as a person. It really delves into people's idiosyncrasies and how, at the heart of it, a lot of us have this fear that we are not normal. I feel like the core of this story was an aching almost. Never quite getting what you want, never quite feeling like enough, always lacking. The story follows Marianne and Connell, who at the start are both in their final year of high school. They live in this very insular, small Irish town. In this microcosm, the main male protagonist, Connell, really thrives. He is popular, he plays football, everybody likes him. Whereas Marianne is really quite the opposite. She is cast as a social outcast. Everyone thinks she's really weird and possibly even mentally deranged. So Marianne and Connell don't speak to each other at school. They're also in very different social classes. Marianne's family is incredibly wealthy. They own this huge manor house, and Connell's mother actually works as the house cleaner for Marianne's mom. So because of this, Marianne and Connell have access to each other outside of school, and they begin a clandestine sexual relationship. Now, even though it seems from the surface like it's just a sexual relationship, it's very clear that both characters actually really care for one another as people, not just as bodies to be used. But Connell wants to keep their relationship a secret because he is afraid of the shame that would come from people finding out that he wants to sleep with the weird girl. So the story continually skips several months ahead, following Marianne and Connell throughout their entire university experience in Dublin. It's very interesting because when they get to Trinity University, their social roles are really quite reversed. Marianne thrives off of the social intricacies that are based on things like posturing and money, whereas Connell feels perpetually out of place. This is a story of ebb and flow, of them falling together and falling apart again, time after time after time. Though they continually lose each other, it feels like Rooney wants us to believe in the power of true love. She wants us to believe that they will always come back together again, despite everything, because they truly know one another. And not just that, it's not just that they know each other either, it's that their lives are inextricably linked because they've had such a profound effect on one another. So let's talk about craft. The novel is very sparse, very little description, loads of dialogue, and lots of inner monologues. And this is precisely why I adored it. Sally Rooney just created such a complexity of narrative. You know me, I love character-driven novels, and this is really the only novel this year that I have read where I felt like I truly knew the characters, that I understood them at least as they understood themselves, which at times felt uncertain as they were coming into their adulthood, trying to figure out who it is that they were. Both characters felt even more real to me, I would say, than many people that I actually know in my real life, because you could see from the internal dialogue that they were truly struggling to understand who they are, to understand their place in the world, and perhaps more importantly, to understand how they felt about who they were and their place in the world. This novel is absolutely not plot-driven, it's definitely character-driven, and that's something that I love. So let's talk about the romance aspect of it. It was a romance and it wasn't. There were a lot of tropes like, okay, so you take the popular boy in school with the unpopular girl, yada yada, but a lot of those tropes were turned on their heads and you really explored, I don't know, just the quality of being human. And that even if you find yourself in one of these situations that sounds like, oh, we've heard that a million times before, that it isn't necessarily trite and unimportant, that these are oftentimes things that people go through and situations that we find ourselves in, but that doesn't mean that they're not still important, that just because it sounds cheesy that it is, because this novel is absolutely not cheesy. It's the opposite of cheesy. This was a novel not about their romance, but it was a novel about the characters as individuals and the effects that they had on each other. Another thing that I loved was that all of the dialogue was witty and intelligent. You can tell that Sally Rooney really thinks. She thinks deeply about things, and she explores deeper aspects of emotions and why we feel the way we feel, how society plays a role, how our families play a role, how our friends play a role, and how we feel about the choices we make, even and especially if we make choices that we don't like. Okay, so another thing that I loved was the timeline. So each chapter would start and it would be like 1 month later or 6 months later, but throughout the chapter you would go back and you would have all of these memories that the character was re-experiencing, and then eventually you would get to the point where you forgot where the chapter even started until Sally Rooney would bring you back and you would realize the purpose of all of those flashbacks, which didn't really feel like flashbacks, and why they led up to the event that she is showcasing in each chapter, in each section of the book. So you would go, oh, that's where we were, and that's why we saw everything we just saw. This book at its heart is tender and aching. It is heartbreaking and bleak, but also somehow hopeful. It felt like vulnerability. I felt like I could truly connect with the characters. And it's one of the only novels that I am planning on rereading right away. I almost never reread novels, so that's really saying something. Look, if you're wanting an action-based story, maybe this isn't the right time to read it, but if you are looking for something with heart, if you are looking for something that really dives deep into the full human emotional spectrum and really explores what it means to be an individual and all of the fears that we have about who we are as individuals and whether or not it's okay to be who we are, and whether or not our choices were good ones, and feeling guilt over choices that we made in the past that don't align with who we want to be, feeling that cognitive dissonance between who we want to be and how we're actually behaving, and ultimately how other people can change us, can guide us, can lead us in new and better directions, can make us feel worthy. Better than that, make us realize the worth we have in ourselves. It's not that one person is making another person worthwhile, it's that another person can love you so much and see so much beauty in you that you can start to see it in yourself. It was absolutely stunning and I highly recommend it. 5 out of 5 stars for sure. Thank you for watching today's video. I'm looking forward to talking to you all again very soon. Let me know down below in the comments if you have read this book yet, what you thought about it, and if you haven't read it, let me know another book that sounds kind of similar to this that you may have read that I might like. Okay, until next time, my darlings, I'm sending you love.